Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I am Agi Keramidas and my mission is to inspire you to rise up, grow, stand out and take action towards the next level of your life. I am interviewing leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, exceptional people who can and will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week, every Monday and Thursday. In today's show, I am privileged to speak with Jamie York. Jamie, you have a passion for sharing your property and business knowledge. You became a self-made millionaire by the age of 24, and in 2019, you and your company were shortlisted for Property Investor of the Year. When someone looks at your success at such an early age, they might miss to see that throughout your time in business, you had many personal and professional challenges to overcome. And these challenges actually now enable you to empathize with other people's personal journeys. So you are passionate about guiding others and you have trained thousands of individuals over the past few years. Jamie, welcome to Personal Development Mastery. I am delighted to be speaking with you today.
Agi, it's great to be on. Thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm really excited about it. I love everything personal development, mindset and things like that. And hopefully I can add some value to yourself and your audience in the next sort of half an hour, see how we get on. But yeah, brilliant to be on and thank you for having me.
Thank you. That's amazing. And we're going to talk a lot about personal development elements or things. Before I do that, I want you to give us a little bit of background. And in specific, I would like to ask you to give us a key defining moment in your journey, especially in terms of personal growth or milestone moment, something like that.
Sure, okay, yeah. So a bit of background business-wise. It's hard to say when I officially started in business. You know, when I was at school, I always had little hustles, entrepreneurial sparks going on, you know, whether it was selling donuts in the playground. Do you remember Pokemon cards?
Yes.
Yeah, I used to trade Pokemon cards. I made quite a bit of money when I was little from that. You know, I worked on mini diggers, the paper rounds, yo-yos, loads of things. Just sort of playing around at school. And then, you know, I've always had that entrepreneurial spark. I've always been interested and fascinated at how easy it is really to start making some money from these different things. And then as I end up sort of developing and pushing on, I end up going into the property sector quite a lot and developed that out over the last 8 years. And and then as that sort of developed, made a load more money in that, started then using the skill set to then help other people scale their portfolios in terms of finding them the investments. And then I thought, well, hold on, now I'm building my own portfolio, showing other people how they could do theirs and charging a fee. Why don't I educate people on how to do the same? And so it was just this natural sort of development, as you're going through. And then I started branching into other things. So I own a few other businesses. And then I realized that as I'm developing these businesses, that actually pretty much every business that you have, it's the same mechanics. And it's almost a copy and paste system. And obviously you have to vary, diversify, alter the way you approach it. Mm-hmm. But it's very similar marketing. It's very similar sales techniques. It's very similar concepts, delivery. You need the same mindset to developing into all of these roles. And that's the sort of space and how it's developed over that time, I guess. In terms of pivotal moments, you mentioned them, like I always find it difficult for me because I don't think I have one defining moment. I think it's a collection of a lot of things. And I almost find it's like by trying to find that pivotal moment, you're almost going, what's the one thing that makes you you? And, you know, there's always like the one buzzword or the line that sounds really good, which don't get me wrong, is really good for marketing as well, right? Yeah. But ultimately, I think actually, you know, how you make a good meal isn't because of one key ingredient. It's because of all of the ingredients in the pot that sort of put that together. And actually, somebody was asking me this morning, and I think it's probably a handful of things. My mum was not very good at making money, but she was great at saving money. She had a money saving mindset. My dad was pretty good at making money, but absolutely useless at keeping it. He'd usually drink it away on the weekends, that sort of thing. My dad left my mum when I was 3 months old. So my mum was a single mum of 4 kids, and I got to see the discipline that she had in order to bring us up, trying to go, no money, but always managed to go on a holiday each year, those sort of things. So I learned graft, I learned hard work, I learned money management and making money. The thing that I didn't learn from either of them is how to multiply money. And wealth is really those 3 things: learning how to make, manage, and multiply. You can't multiply if you can't manage, and you can't manage money if you don't have any. So it's kind of all interlinked. And then linked in with that hard financial upbringing difficulty, linked with the fact that I managed to get into a pretty decent school. I didn't go to private school, but a well-educated school, if you like, where most people had money. They had private education in order to get into this school, whereas I just happened to get in this school. That then created a gap for me because I didn't really know it existed, because up until that point, the financial situation that I was in, that was life.
Yeah.
But then I realized actually there's another way of living. And then I started realizing that everyone has problems in their lives. Like, money doesn't solve everything. But what I realized is a lot of the difficulties and arguments in our household and what we couldn't do was often because of a lack of money. And I thought, you know what, I'm always going to have arguments with people because that's life. You're always going to have these disagreements. But I don't want to have to say no because I can't afford something. I don't want my kids not being able to do things because of that. So that gap was created. And then, if you look at all of that, those recipes thrown in. And then when I was, how old was I? I was 13. It was in September. My birthday's in November. So I was 13, close to being 14. And my dad passed away of bowel cancer at that point, which is crap for anyone. Let alone at that stage of your life when hormones are all over the place already.
Yeah.
And but that really gave me an appreciation for life and that every moment's precious in that moment. So now you've got all of those ingredients in the recipe, and really there's going to be a couple of outcomes. You can look at that recipe and go, oh, that's going to be a pretty tragic person, overall, or you can understand why I am the way I am. And there was actually an image I saw probably about a week ago, and this person's dad was a raging alcoholic, and there were 2 brothers, or I think they were brothers in there, and one of them he's wearing what you might visualize as success. He has a nice briefcase. He looks like an investment banker, 3-piece suit, great jacket, and the other guy's a bum. He's on the street and he's got a bottle in his hand, probably looking a bit like me, actually.
More like me, actually.
Yeah, or you, Aggie. The typical homeless look that you got brought in there. And we're there, and they're asked the same question, why do you think your life panned out this way? And both of them answer, because my dad was an alcoholic. And often it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it and what you place on it that has that outcome. So I think they're very pivotal moments in my life, and I chose to acknowledge the problems they created and offer up solutions to how I can develop past that. And some I did really well at, and some I failed at, and that's okay. But there's always positives to take from every negative. We live in this world of yin and yang balance that we have. There is nobody's life that purely negative things happen to them. And there is nobody's life where purely positive things happen to them. And even that wording, nothing happens to you, everything happens for you. And everything is an opportunity to thrive. So, yeah, I know that wasn't the question, but I don't think there is one pivotal moment in my life.
Fine.
I think there's a lot of stuff that's happened around me that I've decided to take on in whatever context that comes into.
I'm asking. No, thank you for that. It was you touched upon many things which I want to go deeper in a moment. But when I ask about this pivotal milestone moments. Not everyone has them. Of course, our life is a succession of events or experiences or beliefs that lead to us. But many times, I'm sure you've come across it, there are some moments or some events that really change the direction of one's life. So it's always fascinating. Not everyone has them, but it's very impressive and it makes a fantastic story if one says, oh, well, I turn from this to that. That story about the dad being an alcoholic and how it's interpreted, it's amazing, and it really proves that it's not what happens, it's how we interpret it, where you said. And there are many things about mindset that I want to ask you today. Let me ask, because you already mentioned it, and there is some elements about money mindset, because you know very well that the majority of people are having issues with money. You said about making it, holding it, and multiplying it. So, for many people, the thought of multiplying it is like a dream, because even making it is difficult. Of course, holding it. So, if I were to ask you, what do you think is the main reason in the people's mindset that is lacking and they can't really create financial success in their life? What would you say?
You, it's their relationship to money,
Okay.
is what I would say. And what I mean by that is in my family, if I went to somebody in my family, I went, so how much do you earn? That's a bit rude, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just like, why is that rude? Why is that rude? Like, you don't go, what color are you painting your door? It's a bit rude. It's just a question. But that's how we treat money, isn't it? It's a very
Yes.
private affair. It's taboo to talk about money. And both sides of it, by the way. If somebody's struggling with money, I go, great, how much are you earning? How are you spending your money? Because actually, I want to, if I don't know those problems and I don't know that, I can't help somebody. But it's also taboo to celebrate that you make a load of money as well. You know, if you go, yeah, I'm a millionaire. All right, not bad. You know, yeah, that's a bit ego. Get over yourself. It's just like, why? Why? And often it's your relationship to money. And if you can't talk about money, how do you expect to talk about building it up?
Mm.
You know, people talk about personal development, and actually, personal development to the average person is a bit woo-woo. Like, it's like, oh, here he goes. You know, when I started reading personal development books, there's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes.
And whenever friends or family came around, I've got bookshelves. I've got a lot of books. I like reading. I would always hide that book, right?
Really?
Because of the title.
All right. Mhm.
Because of the title. Like, I didn't want people coming in and going, why have you got a book on how to get friends, Jamie? And it's just like, how crazy is that? Like, but people care so much
Mhm.
about what other people think about them rather than knowing who they are and having the self-awareness to go, actually, I want to develop myself. So often you want to look at the relationship that you've got with money. And it comes from, everyone's got their past, right? So often people have a scarcity mindset around money, like every pound's a prisoner, which is very true, by the way. But how you take that line is
Mhm.
quite interesting. So I say every pound's a prisoner because I don't want it in my bank. I want it working for me. I want it out in an investment. I want it paying me dividends so I can enjoy that. So I never spend initial capital. So if I have £100,000, I won't spend a penny of it. I'm really boring. I'll invest that and make 12 grand a year, and I'll spend that £1,000 a month however I want. Just so happens I'll probably then reinvest that, you know, because I'm a bit of a geek with it. But you know, but you spend that because that £1,000 a month theoretically is always going to be there. The
Mhm.
problem with spending that 100,000 is that's gone. That's gone once you spend it, right? So it's kind of looking at it in that way. But it is that relationship to money. Do you have that scarcity mindset? Because the other way is every pound's a prisoner. My mom, great saver.
Mhm.
Problem there is it would never like an extreme example is these people like don't go to Costa. Costa costs you £3.50. Just make a coffee at home. Cost you
Mhm.
15 pence. And it's like, come on, man. You know, like it's a bit over the top. And if you've got that restrictive attitude towards things, you know, you're never going to be wealthy. financially wealthy. I don't know many people that have saved themselves to a millionaire. You have to take risks, calculated risks, but within that becomes a healthier relationship with how you perceive money. Money doesn't change you, by the way. It never changes people ever. It exposes them, okay, or accentuates them. It just makes you more of what you already are. And often what you see is what people have been pretending who they are as individuals. So if you're a charitable giving person, when you're a millionaire, you can give a lot more. You can help a lot more. If you're an asshole with no money, you're even more of an asshole with money.
Yeah.
And you think that money gives you power of some kind. And those are the people that think that money makes you better. It doesn't make you better. Don't treat somebody with money with money as more than they actually are. Treat them with respect if you want financial advice, but it doesn't make them a better person. It's just more of what it already is. So it's always accentuating or exposing who you are.
That's a great answer. Thank you for that. What you just said reminded me, you had a very popular post on your social media a couple of months ago, and you were saying something like, after a certain level of income, after exceeding a certain level of income, then most of your needs or most of the things that you would want come fairly easily to you, but still you strive, or people strive, to earn even more money than that.
Yeah.
And it was a very intriguing, conversation about what really drives, whether it is the challenge of making more, because obviously after a point you don't need it for yourself. However, you said giving, contributing, all this, you really need, the more money you can put into that, the more you can make an impact and a difference, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really weird timing that. So that was a post I did on the Disruptive Entrepreneur Community on the 8th of May. I don't have an incredible memory, by the way. It's just pure chance that between my last interview and this one, I popped on Facebook and somebody commented on it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Was it you?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, but I was talking about that. Like, actually, most of my goals are linked to money and materialistic things. And I started reflecting on that and going, is that a bad thing? And actually, no, probably not, because actually, once you've got money, you don't need to say no to many things in life. And it's all about that transitioning. But as you grow, your impact gets bigger. So I'm a big believer that you have to be selfish in order to be selfless. If you're not the best version of yourself, how can you? If you've got a wife, if you are not 100% you and looking after you, how can you be the best husband? How can you be the best dad? How can you be a best friend? All of that sort of thing. So it all starts with you at the core. And then once you've looked after yourself, your financial future, then it's maybe your family's. And then you start looking at that, then, your vision should always be one step beyond you. If you're just starting out, maybe don't try and get people on Mars right now. Okay. Don't go all Elon Musk. Right now, you need to look after you. Then it's looking after your family, then your county, your local area, then your country, then maybe the continent. Then maybe you want to make an impact on the world, and maybe then you want a global vision. But ultimately, as you expand yourself, you can then expand the thinking of other people. And as you look after yourself, you can look after other people. But ultimately, you need to realize that if you want to have more and more impact, often that does involve more money. It doesn't have to be your money all the time, but access to money and power within that. And as long as you're using those two things for good, you're going to have a really great impact on the world. And that will pay you more than anything that you realize.
And you mentioned the word materialistic earlier on. Saying what you just told me, that's not materialistic at all. Yes, it involves money, but it's not to buy stuff. That's for me the materialistic part of it.
Yeah, I like stuff as well.
Most of us do.
Yeah, I like the stupid cars. I like having an ego, and I definitely have one. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look good. I don't see any problem. It's when your life is revolved around it that it becomes a problem. If your life is based around how you look to other people, That's when it becomes a problem. But everything we do, if you read Sigmund Freud's any
Mhm.
philosophy around that, everything we do, well, he says everything's to get laid, right? But like everything is based around impressing other people.
Mhm.
You know, the reason you feel the need, even when you're doing a good deed, the reason you feel the need to share it subconsciously is you want to feel good about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There was a probably about a year ago now. It was called Racks, Random Acts of Kindness. And it was going around YouTube and it was exploding. And
Mhm.
it was people that were going in, they were buying these fake scratch cards, and this person was buying a fake scratch card and they won £1,000. It was all set up. But you saw the emotion, and it was such a great thing. Or even going into a shop and going, right, I've got $1,000 in America typically. $1,000, I'm going to go buy a load of rice, some meat, a hotel for a night, sleeping bag, long johns, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they filmed the whole thing. And I remember looking at that going, what an incredible thing to do. And they filmed it, which has now inspired me to do it. And if I'm feeling inspired, somebody else will be feeling inspired. But the amount of people that were on there going, you only did this for the camera. Would you have done this if it wasn't getting filmed? Who cares? You still did an incredible thing. And yes, if it was solely for the like, the subscribe, the YouTube algorithm, then yeah, maybe you're not having the right motives. But there's an argument where you're still getting the same outcome, right? But if you're doing it because you think it's the right thing to do, um, there's worse ways to spend £1,000, right? Um,
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong to gain something in return for that. I mean, as much as there's nothing wrong with doing a good deed and not telling a soul about it, which is great for your own soul, but I don't see what's wrong with doing an act of service or an act of kindness and gain some visibility or whatever it is. Of course, provided that you don't do it for that reason.
yeah, I'd even argue that it's better getting some gratification for it,
Yeah,
because ultimately, one, you're going to feel good about it. And when you feel good about it, you're more likely to do it. If you get public recognition for something, you're more likely to do it.
sure.
And you're more likely to inspire other people doing it.
Exactly.
You Why wouldn't you want that going on? Why wouldn't you want other people to get involved in that movement?
Hmm. Yeah. You said earlier on something like money won't solve all of your problems. And yes, that's true, but it certainly can solve a lot of them. Maybe
Yeah,
not all of them, but a lot of them.
yeah. You know what? There's a lot of problems in life. That money is oxygen, okay, and if the problem is you're never really focusing on the bigger problems in life.
Hmm.
I once went to my mum. Steve Jobs apparently used to look in the mirror each morning and say, something like, if this were my last day, what would I be doing right now? Or am I really happy doing what I'm doing? And if it were too many days, he didn't have like 3 days and that's it. But if there were too many days in a row that he was doing, he'd just stop it. And money facilitated that. Money allowed that to happen. And I said it to my mum, I said, Mum, when's the last time you said, this was about 8 months ago, I said this to her. I said, when's the last time you said to yourself, what would really make me happy in life? And her response really broke my heart. She just said, Jamie, most of us don't have the privilege to ask ourselves that question. And I was just like, oh. And I genuinely believe that's because of money, because she didn't have that oxygen. um, and things are going to be very different, and that's part of my motivation to help build that up and make sure my family are financially secure also. But it doesn't solve problems. It makes way for bigger ones and better ones. Problems are not bad things. It's adversity in life is where prosperity comes from in all areas of life. It's not something to be avoided. As humans, we are solution providers. And wouldn't you like the big problems of, how am I going to build that school out in Africa, rather than how am I going to donate £5 this month when I'm really struggling to pay my own bills? And bigger problems, bigger responsibilities, bigger solutions, bigger meaning in life I personally think that's what's really exciting, and what we should all strive for, to be the best version of your life. I had the privilege of having a good chat with David Goggins. Don't know if you've heard of him.
Of course.
And I interviewed him, arm wrestled him as well, and absolutely smashed him. By the way, I did.
That's hard to believe, but anyway.
Yeah. I did actually arm wrestle him.
Okay.
He flattened me in about 10 seconds. It was like, go. But as he was talking about, his aim in life is when he goes to heaven. I'm not a religious person, but he was talking about let's say heaven's real. And he was like, when I want to get there, he was like, I believe that God, before letting you through the pearly white gates, all of that, will show you a version of you. And that version of you is the person that said yes to the opportunities, the person that did the best that they possibly could, pushed themselves as hard as they possibly could to have just a fantastic life, a giving life, a thriving life, a life of abundance. And he said, I want to look at that person like I'm looking in the mirror. I don't want to look at that person and see somebody that has something that I didn't go for.
Yes.
And that for me was like, wow, that's where I want to be. And naturally that's going to come with haters, because people don't like you. People like you doing too well, but not too well. But yeah, that really excited me, and being that version of myself was really exciting for me, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think it was Sylvester Stallone that said, once you stand out and you are about a meter higher than the rest, they will line up in queues to chop you down, because many people don't like the ones that are standing out. You said something that caught my attention, something your mom said about that most people don't have the privilege to think about what makes them happy or what they would like to do. And I think that this should be a human right rather than a privilege for a few. It's part of why we're here, to be
Yeah.
the most that we can, to share the most that we can, not just to survive.
Yes, absolutely. It's a real shame. I think it's actually upsetting. Everyone has the right to be happy. Everyone has the right to ask themselves, what would make me happy? That most people, the reason they get to the end of their life, and this is the scary thing, we're all going to die, right? And I'm okay with dying. I'm really not scared. Like, if somebody told me I've got 5 years left, I'm genuinely okay with that. I don't want to, I want to carry on, but I'm not scared of that. What I'm terrified of is dying and not living. And it's the whole everyone dies, but how many people truly live?
Yes.
And that's the thing that's quite scary for me. And I think it's so sad that people don't think they've got that innate right to be happy. I've got a decent amount of money now, and I will go. There's a hotel in Dubai where it's the world's only 6-star hotel. It's just like, I'm definitely going to go there, and it's stupid. It's like 50 grand a night or whatever. I'm going to go there just to be like, yeah, I've done it. But honestly, I am just as happy sleeping in a pound bed than on the floor up a mountain. Happiness is not actually what's going on around you. You can even if you're in massive debt. Let's say right now I am in crippling debt. I'm still here having the conversation with you. I'm in the exact same situation. Whether I go out there and they tell me they've lost a deal that's cost me 50 grand, or I go out there and they tell me they've done a deal that's made me 50 grand, I'm still the same person. I don't change because of that. It's like, the £10 note, £20 note, whatever. You can screw it up, spit on it, put it through dirt. You still want the £20 note, right? Mm-hmm. Most people will still say, yeah, I'll have that. Just rinse that off, no problem. Funny how you still place the same value on that £20 note, and yet we don't. We go through some mess. We get knocked about a bit. We get a little bit of a slap. And we suddenly think we're worth less and should expect less in our lives. Mm-hmm. That's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. You should always value who you are, because you have a 1 in 400 trillion chance of being alive right now. If that doesn't make you special.
What does? Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's in many ways. And by the way, the conversation has gone a completely different direction than what I was
Yeah.
going to ask you. But I love it. So I think it's fascinating, and many times just these authentic conversations have much more meaning than prescripted ones. But it is, I think, apart from our right, it is our duty as well. And what you said about David Goggins and God showing him or everyone really, the image of the person that we could have been, it's very scary to realize at the end of your life that you wasted pretty much your life because you could have done X, Y, and Z, and instead, because of your fears or whatever else, you remained hidden and mediocre. And the regret at that time is immense because there's nothing you can do about it anymore.
It's crazy. So if you think, let's say you live to 90, okay, 90 years old, a long, healthy life, you're going to spend about 30 years in bed. Okay. That's how long, 30 years in bed. So buy a good bloody bed, all right? Make sure it's a comfy one. There's lesson number one. You're going to spend 30 to 40 years of your life in either education or working. Okay, so that's around 70 years of your life. You've only got 20 years left right now. And then you've got your groceries, driving, traveling to and from work, to and from where you're going, um, all of the chores that you need to do in around the house. That represents about 7 years of your life. So you've got about 13 years in a 90-year time span to do the things that you love. There's two things I'd say around that. Is one, what are you going to do with that?
It's very scary when you think it like that.
Very scary. And then the truth is that if you're thinking a little bit further into that, why does that 30 to 40 years of work need to be something that you're settling on? Because actually, that's what most of your life represents. Why wouldn't you do that? And it makes you happy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Shall we talk about that then, since you brought it up? Because you are passionate about educating others. So, two things really. One is, why are you passionate about that? What is the driver behind you? And the second, uh, actually, tell me that first, and I'll go into the other one afterwards.
Okay.
What's your passion about educating people?
Okay, so there's three levels really. The first one, and the most impactful for me, is once you get money. You know, money was always an obsession for me. Like, I always wanted to be a millionaire. Then when I got it, it was sort of like, oh my god, I am a net worth millionaire, and that lasted about a week. And then after that, it was kind of like, okay, I'm still driving the same car, I'm still in the same house, it's like, cool. And that's where people, I think, get that fix of upgrade the house, upgrade the car, and then that lasts about a month. And then and then you get confirmation bias where you finally bought your dream car. And then you realize it almost feels like every single other person bought the same car at the same time. And you're like,
Yeah.
what happened here? So often that's the problem with chasing the materialistic goals. So then when I started doing some education, it was an absolute mistake. Or not mistake. It was not planned. I was at an event once. I got invited by a friend of mine, and a speaker didn't turn up. And I was like, oh, that's not good. And they didn't turn up, and they just end up going, can you jump on stage? Literally half an hour. And I was like, believe it or not, like, I'm actually pretty scared of being on stage. I do get nervous. People don't like, no way, but I do. I really do. And I can't remember. It wasn't loads of people. It was like 50 people, 60 people maybe. And I stood on stage, and then 20 minutes in, I end up sort of just finding my flow, going. And I was on for about 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even realize it was just people asking me questions. And then it was really awkward at the start. It's like, so this is who I am, guys. Any questions? And it's like,
How did you feel at that time?
terrified,
Okay.
absolutely terrified. And then as I got into the flow of it, I was like, wow, like really enjoying this. And then by the end of it, I was like it wasn't, nobody moved from their seats. I hadn't moved, and we were just laughing, talking, having great conversations. And it was actually the event space that came in and were like, really sorry, we've got to close. And then literally, and then one person was like, Jamie, do you want to come for dinner? Should we go out for dinner? And then pretty much everyone, we filled out a restaurant. And then it was just weird. It was talking, and there was probably an element of ego in there, right? Suddenly there's this ego, people listening to me yabber on. But it felt really incredible. And it was pretty amazing seeing the impact that you can have on other people by sharing authentically. And this wasn't me trying to sell something. This was me just trying to help people out. And I had no other ulterior motive. And that felt amazing. And then I didn't do anything for about 3-4 months after that. Nothing, because again, I wasn't planning on educating people or helping people. And then there was one person that got in touch with me and sent me a really lovely message about how they implemented what I'd said on the day to the T, and they just secured their first deal and was making a couple of grand a month or whatever. And I was like, wow. And then that feeling felt pretty incredible. So for me, it's number one, a positive source of energy for me. Number two, I'm actively looking for partnerships all the time. Something I'm very self-aware of is I don't like doing many things on my own. No man is an island, all of that sort of thing. And I want to find people that think similarly to me and make me a better version of myself. And the whole thing, you are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. I don't know if it's 5, but it makes logical sense that actually, if you spend your time with deadbeats that are down the pub every night, those knockoff Nigel types that know everything about nothing, you're probably going to become that person. Whereas if I'm surrounding myself with successful people, and I'm not just talking financially, but people that think differently, people that want to go down the pub, have a pint or a glass of wine, but the conversations are very different. It's not the fact they're down the pub that's the problem.
I know exactly what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, and then you start becoming more of that, and you start thinking, and often, we're a world of talkers right now, and I want to be surrounded by a world of thinkers that think differently. So the second stage is that partnership, people that I can build relationships with. I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in blend. And so I want my life to be my work. I want work to be my life. And then I want to stop calling it work, because people have negative connotations. Just, this is my life. Like, this is what I love. And if people want to be a part of that, that's great. And if they don't, that's great as well. And then third, it makes money. It's another income stream for me. And why wouldn't I do it? Often that's what I'm tending to do in most of my businesses now, that I'm doing it for me. The next stage is I'm doing it for other people as a done for you service. And then I'm educating people on how I do it for me. And then I'm educating people on how I do a done for you service. And people seem to have a problem with that. You make money from educating people as if that's the only thing you care about. It's like, yes, it's definitely up there. Would I do it for free? Probably not, if I'm completely honest. And it's nothing to do with my passion for it. It's because part of my enjoyment from it is people getting results. And not all the time, but almost all the time, people don't do a lot with stuff for free.
Sure. When people pay, they pay attention, Jamie.
Yes, that's really good, actually. When people pay attention. But also, I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm not as invested into something if I've not been remunerated for something. If I'm here and I'm doing this podcast and I'm really enjoying having this conversation. I like this level of intellectual conversation. But I'm also aware that it's brand awareness. People might search my name after this. People might hate me after this. Who knows? Some people might like me. People might go on my YouTube channel. People might download it. People might end up investing with me. So there's a payoff, right? And I think it's okay to be aware of that. And outside of business, if I get paid in my business roughly £1,000 an hour, am I feeling that motivated to just have a one-to-one conversation with people, taking up an hour of my time where I'm getting no benefit? No, I'm not. And I'm okay accepting that. And I don't think that's a bad thing to go for. So yeah, those are my three reasons really. So it's my passion of helping and getting that payoff. It's my passion of partnerships, and it's my passion of money in that.
That's fantastic. Also, explain to me your thoughts on traditional education versus self-education, because the kind of education that you do, or Dale Carnegie's book that you were hiding, that you said, are self-educating books. So what are your thoughts about what's going on with education, in the broad sense of education, of course?
I think the educational world as is how it largely needs to be, or for the country to function.
Okay.
A shepherd needs more sheep than sheepdogs.
That's
And the
very
world
good.
needs more sheep than lions. You can't have a world of pioneers. You can't have a world of entrepreneurs. You can't have a world of people that want to work and contribute. You need people that leech on the world. And every animal has every parasite has its place in the world. The chaos theory, butterfly effect, and having an appreciation for everyone's and everything's place is there. But with the education sector, you need to breed sheep. You need people that want to work for other people rather than work for themselves. You need people that are going to follow that. It's the same thing here, and it's really weird talking about this. Like, obviously, I've got staff. Thank you, Katie. Ironically bringing me a coffee. Thank you. But talking about staff, I need people that want to work for somebody and be a part of a vision instead of head the vision.
Yeah.
I'm very aware, because I talk about entrepreneurial things, that I'm more likely to have staff listening to this, my team listen to this and going, actually, I want to go set up on my own. And good luck to them if they do. And I'll do everything I can to support that. But ultimately, most people don't want that. So I do think we're breeding sheep, but I'm not sure that's necessarily a bad thing, if I'm honest. What I do think is, I think the education sector needs to incorporate more money management. I know that home economics used to be a thing. I never had that at school. I think it got stopped. But I don't really know what it was. I think it was mainly about cooking and stuff like that. But general home skills, how do you balance your books? How do you know what an asset versus a liability is? How do you know if your net wealth is up or down? How do you know if you can afford something? Seems like a really basic question. That's really obvious to a lot of people. But for 90% of people, they don't know until it's too late and they're tied into a contract. And it's like, shit, what do I do? So I do think that should be really good. I think more personal development should be in. I think mental health awareness is on the up. And I think schools need to react to that, or be more proactive to react to that. Because it's becoming more okay to say, I suffer from anxiety. It's becoming more okay to go, actually, I feel a bit depressed. And I think they need more funding. I think teachers are very much underpaid. And, you pay people how you want them to perform. And there's a whole supply demand thing, there's plenty of teachers that want a job, so you don't need to pay. I get that. But if you want to attract the best in the world, then pay for it. So I do think that. The last thing that I think is, I think there's a really big difference between getting told you have to learn something to learning for your own benefit. So there's a school out in Costa Rica. Zac Efron's got a new series out on Netflix. I think it's episode 3. and it's talking about health in general. And there's a school out in Costa Rica where there's no exams at all. There's an agenda, but as the kid, you have to pick 3 or 4 a day. I'm getting it slightly wrong, but you pick whatever one you want.
Yeah.
And I really like that, because our education system right now is, Einstein's whole thing of like, you've got a fish, a monkey, a wolf, a dog, whatever. And you're like, right, guys, we're going to do an intelligence test. Climb that tree. And the monkey's there going, yes, well done, monkey. You are the most intelligent person in my class. And it's like, well, great. What about swimming? Because I think the fish might have an advantage there, and we're all incredibly intelligent human beings, but often it takes that exploration to find out what we're intelligent in. And you cannot expect to have one set system and have somebody labeled dunce or intelligent over the rest of their life. And I think the problem is, on both sides, people start thinking they're somebody because they got A grades at school. It's like, mate, you learn how to fucking take a test, get over yourself. I couldn't give less of a shit about people's qualifications. Don't get me wrong, it's a good filter. It's a good filter to show that people wanted to progress themselves. But if they went to uni and they got a first, or they went to uni and get a 2-2, I don't care. I use the fact they went to university to develop themselves, or they did their A levels to develop themselves. I'd be more impressed if I was hiring somebody for marketing, if somebody's got a doctorate in marketing, or somebody left school when they were 16 and they've taken 7 self-paid digital marketing courses, I know who I'm interviewing for, right? Often it's about choice and selection. And I think it's a shame, because people are then molded in a certain way, and they come out, and you can have great teachers or not so great teachers, but you decide whether you're intelligent by the end of school, or you decide whether you're an idiot by the end of school. And I think that's a real shame, that you then live your life based on the first 18 years of your life.
Thank you for this comprehensive answer, and it was a very interesting point of view that you made through that. And I just want to ask a little clarification. You mentioned the sheeps and the lions. So if I were to ask you briefly, what do you think that in terms of mindset differentiates one from the other? Is there one thing that drives some people to not to want to be sheep and others to be content to be like that?
I think there's probably 2 divisions, if I'm honest, Aggie. I think there's freedom of thought.
Yeah.
So
which we all have, or should have anyway.
we all have the ability to have, for sure.
The ability, yeah.
The thing is, when you've had your way of life, you're often conditioned in stuff. People that are abusive in life is probably because they've seen abuse in their life, almost all of the time, in fact. So I'm not taking away from their responsibility, but you are conditioned to think and act in a certain way. And I think that's the first thing that divides. Is I had a friend, and he seemed to know so much. This was about 7 years ago, and this got me really thinking quite differently. And he was one of those really annoying people that you hated, that you loved him. Like, you could talk about art, and he'd have a really in-depth conversation. You could then talk about science, and he knows a lot. You could talk about pretty much everything, and he seemed to know a lot about a lot. And I said to him once, I was like, how do you know so much? He was like, well, I don't really. He was like, I'm actually quite ignorant. And the more I learn, the more I realize how ignorant I am. I was like, oh, you smart ass. And I was like, no, come on, how do you know? He was like, well, when's the last time you thought, I wonder how that works? And I was like, pretty much every day. Like, I'll see something, I'm like, I wonder why that is, or I wonder this. He was like, cool, what do you do about it? I was like, don't give it much thought, carry on. He was like, yeah, but he was like, but I make a conscious decision on at least one thing a day, that if I don't know how something works, I'll look at it. Only takes 5 minutes, and then I either remember that fact or I don't. But if somebody brings it up, you're probably going to recollect it. And I think he was like, I've done that for years and years and years. So now I know a lot compared to most people. And I thought, wow, that's a really unique way of doing things. And I've done it since, and I absolutely love it. So I can have comprehensive conversations about things. How many people do that? How many people even think to do that? Not many.
Not many.
often people are brought up with these confines inside the square, and so even freedom of thought is within that square.
Mm.
It's very difficult to break outside of that mold. So that's the first level. The second level is, even if you can, do you want to? Because actually, if you do fit in that mold, it's a pretty easy life in general. It's you've got all of the problems that everyone has, but security wise, you go and get relatively well educated. You don't need to go to the best uni. Go and look for a job. There are jobs out there. There's always jobs out there. Yes, there's harder times than that, but there's never a case, there's no jobs. Yes, there are. There's hundreds, thousands of jobs every single day posted across the UK. Move if you have to. But in general, you can get a decent education. You can get a decent job that is enough to pay your way, a couple of meals out a month, a holiday once a year. A majority of people can have that. And actually, everything you want in life is outside of your comfort zone, right? But not many people are willing to go outside of their comfort zone or expand their comfort zone. So I think it's often people talk a lot about what they want, but then don't often take the action to get there. So you have to question, do you really want it? Because if people then go, well, I don't know how to get it, it's just like, that's another version of, do you want it? Because there's a lot I don't know. A lot I don't know. I'm at that stage of my business where everything's bloody new. There's new problems, as the team grows, there's going to be people that don't like each other. There's going to be people that like each other a bit too much. All of that for my liking in the office. And I have to deal with those things. I don't know how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. I learn. And because and that's it. You are what you consume. You are who you surround yourself with. You are what you eat. All of those things, and they're very basic concepts. What are you taking in your body is gonna, if you look at your body and you don't know what you're looking like, what are you eating, how are you sleeping, what exercise are you doing? Very simple. It doesn't take a genius. If you're fat, eat less. If you're too skinny, eat a bit more. If you're a bit flabby, get down the gym and lift some weights. It's very basic principles. If your mind is a bit, stop watching shit on TV. Start reading a decent book. And you know what? Even if you're in that transition stage, read a book about dragons. Read a book on anything. Just having that activity of reading. I like listening to books. I try to read physically whenever I can, but most of the time I'm listening. Instead of going on an hour's drive and listening to a radio all the time, and I'm not saying every day, why not once a week make it your podcast day or make it your book listening day? Mm-hmm. And if you're feeling down, and I often think this, if you're feeling really down in yourself, if you look at what you've consumed in the last 2 weeks, if you look at mentally, and if you look at what you've eaten in the last 2 weeks, if you look at how you've slept in 2 weeks, and the final one is, look at who you've spent your time with in the last 2 weeks. That will often tell you everything you need to know about where you are in life and where you're going. And then try something. Even if you don't buy into this, do 30 days of only consuming great organic food for your body. Consume books, not TV. Surround yourself with like-minded people that want to develop themselves and positively push them forward. Mm-hmm. See how you feel in 30 days. And I promise you, you will be a completely different version of yourself.
I can vouch for that. Amen. Jamie, let me ask you some quick fire questions as well to sum it up. So what does personal development mean to you?
One day at a time, a Kaizen approach. Not trying to take over the world. If you did an hour a day developing yourself, you'll be shocked at how much of a different, well-developed human you are in a year's time. Instead of going, I'm all in on personal development, consuming 8 hours a day, and you do it for 3 days and then forget about it. And, we're a representation of the small things we do on a daily basis. So Kaizen.
Constant and never-ending improvement, indeed. What's the one piece of advice you would give your 18-year-old self if you could meet him?
Focus on happiness. I know that's such a fluffy answer, but when I was 18, it was always an obsession of money,
Mm-hmm.
because I had an absence of it and I felt a need to look after people.
Mm-hmm.
And often, and what I've realized now is actually the people that love me and care about me are often their happiest around me when I'm happy, because they're happy that I'm happy. Nobody's happy because I bailed them out of a financial situation, and so if you can focus on gaining, and I'll tell you what, as an 18-year-old, this is incredible. As a 28-year-old, this is incredibly difficult. If you can focus as much time as possible on self-awareness and realizing that if finances are your goal, that how you make your money is more important than how much money you make, you're going to live a really great life and a really fulfilled life. And ultimately, it's fulfillment that's really going to change who you are and transform you. And if you're listening to that and going, that's a bit fluffy, it is. But I promise you, when you connect yourself to that, you'll really get what I mean.
You mentioned fulfillment, and I'll digress for a moment and say that it's something that Tony Robbins says, that success without fulfillment, it's the ultimate failure. So you can be as successful in financial terms or other terms as you want. If you don't feel fulfillment inside of you, you have failed miserably. Jamie, let's say you had a magic wand and you could change something in the world as it is today. What would you change?
Can I pick two?
Sure.
Well, it's my magic wand. I'm picking two. I'm not asking for it. I'm going for it. Number one is homelessness. It really upsets me. What Corona, COVID has proved in the UK at least, is there is no need for homelessness. So every single person on the street in the UK within a 30-day period had a place. Whether they chose to go there or not is on them, but they had a place to live. And so that means the resources are there. There's just not the allocation, which shows as a country we're focusing on our GDP and value growth rather than looking after the people that really want it, right? So that's one thing I'd really like to have an impact on. The other is education. And I'm not actually talking about self-education here. When I was 15, I was part of a youth council initiative, which was trying to get kids like me off the street, really doing stupid things like graffiti and stuff like that. And I was a little shit. And it really helped. And part of that program was flying over to the Gambia in West Africa. And we had to raise money. As a group, we raised 30 grand. And we went out there and we built part of the school. And it was an incredible thing to be doing. And there's two things that really got me is how happy people were, like just so happy. Just to see a white person was really weird for them, and they were like, "Oh my god," like poking you and pulling you skin, like that. But also, there was a girl that I met there, incredible young girl, and to this day, possibly the most intelligent person I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And I remember saying, like, "What are you going to do? You're going to be a doctor. You think doctor, banker, the whatever it is that comes up." And she went, "No, I'll be on the fields." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And it was like, "Yeah, my dad's on the fields, my mum's on the fields, my brother's on the fields. That's what we do as a family. That's what we're going to do." But she wanted more. And it really pissed me off, the fact that I'm white, I happen to be born in England, that I've got so many more privileges than so many other people. And so what I really want to see is that no matter where you are in the world, I realize there's a naivety to this, because if you're in the middle of the Amazon rainforest with nobody around you, you're probably not going to be impacted by this. But I don't like the idea of people being limited just because they happen to be born in a different place in the world. And that's something I'd really like to have an impact on by the time my time's done here, is to make sure the availability of high quality education is as far reaching as possible in the world.
That's great. Thank you for that. Jamie, is there anything you were hoping I would ask you today and I completely missed it?
No, like I didn't come on here with any expectations. For me, it's just having a chat with somebody that I think, yeah, this is a really good conversation, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I hope your audience get some value from it, but I can certainly say from my perspective, I got a lot of value from it. So thank you for
Mhm.
having me. You know, if yeah, I hope it's added value in it. And if any of your listeners want to reach out to me, have a chat at any point, that's you're more than welcome to. Um, you know, I'm not going to try and sell you anything. Don't worry. But yeah, I hope that I've just added some value, really. And
Jamie, before I ask you how can people connect with you, just a one last quick question. Do you want to share with us a big breakthrough that you had recently, or aha moment, a really big one?
okay, yeah, quite a timely one. Then is
Mhm.
last. What day are we on? I don't even know what day we're on.
Thursday.
Thursday. Last Wednesday,
Hmm.
I end up having a bit of a breakdown myself, and just crying, you know. And I sort of came to that thing where during lockdown, obviously I've been isolated. We're now starting to get staff members back in to the office, but my life has been my bed and this glass room that I'm in, really. You know, and that's been what it's almost 4 months now, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
and that's been my life. I've not seen family. I've not seen friends. I'm up in Leeds right now,
Hmm.
and family are down in Kent. And so, you know, I realized that I've been working so hard and focusing on just replacing everything with work, 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 7 days a week. We're talking 100-hour weeks. And I had that breakdown, and it actually stemmed from a mentee. He's 37. I was talking to him, and he was saying about his kids. And for some reason, I got this flashback with when I was 11, 12. I lived with my dad. He was 36. And as I said, my mum and dad split up when I was 3 months old. So this was the first ever time I lived with him because me and my brother were arguing. It was too much for my mum at the time. And I loved it. I loved living there. And I used to do his invoices for him, and stuff like that. And I remember once saying to him, I'm sure it wasn't as profound as this, but my memory of it at least was like, I see you a lot, Dad, but I don't really know you. And my dad was sort of like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, I see you a lot, but I don't really know you. We don't actually spend real quality time together. And when I do see you, it's down the pub when you're giving me 20 pence to go play pool with my mates. And he said, look, it's 4 more years. It's like 4 more years. I'm grafting. I'm trying to get a different life for us that, you know, completely change everything. And what we're going to have is when I'm 40, we're going to have a life that's completely different to the upbringing you've had so far. And he died when he was 38. It really suddenly hit me. Like I was not just a little tear, I mean, crying. And I was just like, wow, like where did that come from? And I realized that I'd not been living in line with what I want to represent and what's authentic to me. And I'd spent more time trying to portray a life in the last 4 months than I'm actually looking to achieve myself. And so that was a really nice aha moment. And sort of going, so then that weekend I thought, you know what, I went down south. They started to ease up the lockdown now. And I spent the weekend with my family. I did no work whatsoever, spent time with my niece and my two nephews. And I felt the happiest I've felt possibly this year. And it was such an incredible moment. And I think no matter what dream you're chasing and how hard you're chasing it, don't lose the connection to why you're doing it in the first place. People talk about their whys a lot in wealth. You know, why do you want to work so hard? And one of the most common ones is traveling or kids. Those are the two big ones. I want to travel more and kids. 5 years on, you go, how much traveling have you done? And how much time are you spending with your kids? And you still tell yourself, it's for my kids. It's just like your kids don't need your money. Your kids want to spend time with you and have the experience with you. And that's what I got reconnected with is, you know, I could have £10 million more in my bank account right now. It's not really making my difference. So yeah, that's quite a vulnerable and personal one, but that's the
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, and it's a very good, I think, teaching point for many people who have, let's say, misplaced their priorities in life. And sometimes we need to really look at what's important. Jamie, what would you direct people to connect with you?
So many, aren't there? Like, okay, so you can jump on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, it's Jamie York Wealth on there. So not just about wealth with money, wealth in life. So you can find me on that. If you're on Facebook, probably best my Jamie York page. So just type in Jamie York and go on page. And if you're interested in business, entrepreneurship, and property investment, stuff like that, I've just launched a YouTube channel. So that's the one I'm really looking to push. So I'd say if anyone's got any value from this, I would really appreciate some reciprocity, if you like, to jump on my YouTube channel, type in Jamie York on there. There's a mathematician there that's like 50 years old. That is not me. You'll be able to tell it's me. But yeah, if you go on Jamie York, I'd really appreciate if you watch a couple of videos by the time this goes out and hit the subscribe button. That would really help me on there. But yeah, you can reach out on any platform and I'll do my best to get back to people. I'm always, there's no one messages me and doesn't get a response. I might take a few days, but I will respond to people. So yeah, reach out if you need anything, guys.
Jamie, I want to thank you very much. This has been an exceptional conversation. I really enjoyed it, and there was tremendous value, I believe, that was shared. So thank you very much. I want to wish you all the very best with your life, your business, your fulfillment, and your projects. Any last parting words?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me. I also have got tremendous value from this. I always think value is two ways, and there are some podcasts I've been on that at the end of it I'm like, oh, thank God that one's done. And actually I'm feeling a bit like, oh, I feel like we could chat for another hour or two.
That's how I feel as well.
Yeah, so maybe in a few months' time, we can jump on and do another one. I've really appreciated it. And I just sort of just say, go out there with some passion. And I think the most important thing is, have a head for business and a heart for the world.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Jamie, thank you very much. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, and I'll see you later.
Thank you for listening. Please take a moment to subscribe and review Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts, and also share this podcast with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to gain access to exclusive content while supporting this podcast, then become my patron. The link is in the show notes, or you can type bit.ly/pdmpad. If you want to know more about what I do and how I can help you, or if you have any questions, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. Again, the link is in the show notes, or you can simply type bit.ly/pdmgroup. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.